We're back to the Neil Haley Show, also the Media Giant Effect, and I'm excited to welcome someone who I've been co-hosting a podcast with. We're going to talk about it another time, but she's a great signature program coming up, and only a few spots available for January. I can't believe we're almost the end of the year. Dr. Mary, how are you? We've been doing the podcast that's launching in January. A lot of exciting things happening in January, but I wanted you to talk about this signature program you created, that you've had one of them that was such a great success, but you only have a few limited spots available for January. Tell us about it.
Yes, Neil. Hi, I am doing great. And I hope that you are. And I'm just so excited about what we're doing together and, getting the podcast launched. And essentially, this podcast is entitled Feel, Deal, and Heal, Reinventing Yourself After Loss. And what we're going to be focused on, I really am setting out to change the narrative around the whole definition of loss, expanding the narrative, and getting people to recognize that loss is not just death related. There are so many other types of losses. People lose jobs, people lose their independence, people lose their possessions, their financial security, they lose relationships. And I want people to be able to recognize that loss is a natural part of our existence. And so because loss is a natural part of life, I really want folks to recognize that, how do I begin integrating loss into life? And it's not to say that I enjoy it or that I love in experiencing loss, but what it essentially is that I really want to understand and find meaning in loss whenever I'm encountering it. And I want people to realize that grief is a natural response to loss. So it is natural for us to grieve, and there is no time frame for grieving, and no two people grieve alike. Moreover, loss and grief, everybody grieves differently. And depending on what the loss is, what type of loss we've encountered, we grieve differently. So there is no set timetable, and grief is not a linear process. You might start out today in one area of one level of grief, and you may progress to another area tomorrow, and then you might fall back and regress. But we're constantly moving and progressing. And people should also understand that grief is not something that we overcome. It is something that we endure.
Very good. So January 30th, the podcast launches. And then the other big thing happening in January is your signature program for a second time. So tell us about it. And they only have a few spots available.
Yes. So January 30th, we are going to be launching. We'll be launching the first 6 episodes and of the interviews that we've already conducted. And so each week thereafter, we will be rolling out an episode each week. So I really am excited about this work, because when it comes to grief and loss, there is a stigma in our society associated with grief and loss. Although it is a natural and it's a universal experience, there is a stigma associated with it. And I want people to be able to feel that it is okay to grieve. It's normal to grieve when we experience a loss. So yeah, we've got January 30th coming up, and I'm going to be sending out invitations to everyone and getting people involved. And I'd like to have a launch party, so people will be hearing more about that as well. Everything's going to be virtual, by the way. So no one has to travel. They can just do everything from the comfort of their office or their home.
Exactly. That'll be exciting. And I was talking about January also coming up, your signature program, only a few spots available. Tell us about the second time you've done this. You're so excited about this signature program again. What people will benefit from taking this program that lasts how many weeks?
How many weeks do we have?
Now, how many weeks
Uh,
is it done for your program, your signature program?
oh, that is a 90-day program. So we're looking at about 12 weeks. If we actually go through 10 modules, and then there are 2 weeks where we will actually do a debrief, and then individuals will be able to orally present their capstone experience. So this is a 90-day intensive feel, deal, and heal, reinventing yourself after loss. And it's helping individuals to navigate loss, to find meaning in it, to identify successful and effective coping mechanisms, to figure out how to transcend grief and loss in order to be able to reinvent themselves, reshape their life as a result of that loss.
So tell us a little bit what they're going to get from being part of this program.
Well, here's what folks will get. As I indicated, it's a 12-week experience. And we have each person will get a workbook. Each person will have an opportunity to participate in a weekly group call. We will meet weekly in a group call. They will have 12 modules or 10 modules to go in and process. So these are content modules for them to go in and do work around self-development, self-improvement, and taking those modules and integrating them into their life. So the modules will actually correspond with their capstone experience. So when they've gotten to the end of the 12 weeks, or even at the end of the 10 weeks, they will be able to take that capstone experience, create it, and figure out it will be their goal, their goal that they have set in order for them to move beyond whatever grief or whatever the why is that brought them to this particular intensive. So they will use that as a guide for not just their existing loss, but for future losses, to help them to navigate and overcome future losses. And so they will get that. They will also get a complimentary copy of my upcoming book, Lessons I've Learned from Trauma, Grief, and Loss. So that's going to be coming out by the springtime. So they will get a complimentary copy of that. And of course, they'll get all kinds of tools, resources. They will get additional information, infographics, and a community of individuals who are going through whatever it is they're going through, whatever grief experience it is. They're all going through something. They may be grieving different types of situations, but they're actually going through a grief process. So they will be able to connect with like-minded souls, and they will have me as their encourager, as their guide, as their support system, as we are matriculating through this experience. So there's a lot there to in terms of their return on investment.
What I've been hearing from you is specifically enough the process that if you don't go through that in your life, you don't learn how you've overcome loss. And a lot of people have never finished through the grieving process and working through it. As I've learned in, co-hosting with you the podcast, wow, this is so important for people to move forward in life, right? If they've never gotten over a loss and it's still eating at them and they deal with it on a regular basis, how important is it to finally kind of not shed it off, but really work through it like you have them work through it in the 12 weeks?
You're absolutely right, Neil. And a lot of people I've been talking to individuals who said, Mary, because you've been sharing, you've given me permission to grieve, or I didn't realize that I had not dealt with prior griefs, previous grief experiences. And a lot of people don't do it because in our society, especially if someone passes away, after the 3 days after the funeral is like, it's back to work and function as if nothing has happened. So essentially you're asking people to cut off a limb, to leave a very key part of who they are behind, because we can't function effectively when we are functioning only with parts of ourselves. And one of the things I discovered about, when I've experienced in my recent losses, that support systems and support groups only target individuals who have lost by death. There are people who've had numerous other kinds of losses. There's no support there for them. There is no place for them to go and to gain information, to get enlightened, to help them to cope. And that is one of the things that I'm going to be providing, is a toolbox for individuals to be able to cope with loss, regardless what kind of loss it is.
That's so powerful. And working through that's going to help your health, your
Precisely.
happiness, and you'll be able to make more money by going through this, because you're not going to be dealing with something weighing you down in certain ways.
Exactly.
Because when we have trauma, we have loss, we have specific losses we occur. If we do not able to work through them, it's a process, and then that's the way we become stronger, is working through it. Do you see people avoid, and this is one question I wanted to ask you, avoid loss or don't deal with loss? What kind of signs do you see with people that don't deal with the loss? What do you see them going through, even from loss of a loved one, but also loss of job, loss, divorce, specifically a loss of a friendship? When people don't deal with all these things, what do you see them that's hurting them inside that keeps them from performance?
When we don't deal with loss, it's like a pressure cooker, and we're walking around in life and we're just waiting to explode, or waiting to something causes us to come unglued. We are walking around with defense mechanisms, whether that is projecting whatever our bad thoughts onto other people, self-limiting beliefs we adopt. We embrace that negative self-talk, and people get involved in all kinds of addictions, whether it's substance abuse, whether it is alcohol addiction, whether it is shopping, whether it's gambling, whether it is exercising. Even people find ways to go to church or use religion as a coping mechanism, not really dealing with whatever the issue is that is at hand. So we adopt all these negative kinds of behaviors and bad habits, poor eating habits, and lack of exercise, isolation, and just being stuck, and not recognizing that we are life is living us, we're not living life. So these are some of the symptoms that, things that I see people walking around, not being able to follow through on their commitments, not being able to even set goals or even know where to begin to make life happen, to bring their dreams and aspirations to fruition. So we get caught up in a whole lot of stuff because we've not dealt with the issue at hand. Not until we are able to face our demons, whatever those are, will we ever be able to reach higher ground.
All right. Best place people can find information on you to sign up, to apply for the signature program and learn about your podcast, where can they go?
And to learn about the podcast, they can go to www.merrill.com and actually send a message. They can just send me a message to let me know where they want to focus their energies, if they want to hear more about the podcast, if they want to participate in the intensive, then we will reach out to them and make sure that they get the information that they need.
All right, Dr. Mary, I appreciate you coming by.
Thank you so much, Neil.
Enjoy your afternoon. You're welcome. You're listening and watching the Neil Haley Show, and we'll be back in just a moment.